Major Garrett is in Washington for us with the very latest now on the Trump transition. Major, I want to begin with that meeting between the president-elect and General David Petraeus yesterday. Based on your reporting, how would you characterize Petraeus' chances here?
I would say it's about 40% for Rudy Giuliani, the former New York City mayor, longtime friend of Donald Trump and loyalist. Maybe 30% or so for Mitt Romney and 30% for David Petraeus. I'm told those really are the only three remaining leading candidates for Secretary of State. The meeting with Tennessee Senator Bob Corker, who's chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, I'm told, it's not about Corker taking the nomination as Secretary of State, much more about his chances, how he would preside over the confirmation hearing of whoever Trump would nominate for Secretary of State. Working that out with Corker is what Trump's primary agenda for that meeting is. I'm told that Giuliani is still the leading candidate. But this dinner with Romney tonight, which will not be in Trump Tower, it'll be somewhere else in Midtown Manhattan, does add to the atmospheric drama around this whole process initiated by the Trump team to reconcile with Romney. And that effort at reconciliation has now kind of taken on a life of its own, surprising many in the Trump inner circle who thought that the optics were good to have a kind of meeting of the minds between these two and that would be it. But Trump has now taken it to another level. And until he firmly decides who his Secretary of State is, you can't rule Romney out, though I'm told Giuliani is still the most likely choice in the end for Trump.
You mentioned the inner circle being somewhat dismayed, perhaps, by the president-elect's burgeoning relationship with Romney. We saw surrogates such as Newt Gingrich attack it, but we saw staunch criticism from Kellyanne Conway as well over the weekend. What can you tell us then about Mr. Trump's reaction to the reactions of his inner circle?
Well, let's talk about Kellyanne Conway, because that really is the essence of the inner circle taking on Romney and saying it would be a bad idea to reward Romney with a position like Secretary of State because many Trump supporters who were loyalists throughout would feel betrayed by giving such a high-profile cabinet position to someone who was so obviously disloyal and disrespectful of Donald Trump. And Kellyanne Conway started this on Twitter Thanksgiving Thursday and got no blowback at all, no discouragement whatsoever from President-elect Trump. Then she went on to Sunday talk shows to amplify those misgivings. No blowback, no brushback, no criticism from Trump at all. So Kellyanne Conway is either operating utterly consistent with Trump's wishes or saying things he doesn't mind having said out there. But I will tell you, others in the Trump inner circle are like, okay, if Kellyanne's doing something that Trump doesn't disagree with and she is publicly trashing Romney, and then Trump is having dinner with Romney, keeping this entire drama about Secretary of State going, where is this all landing? How does this get settled? How does this get resolved in a way that doesn't either embarrass Trump, embarrass Romney, or embarrass both? I will tell you, there are those in the Trump inner circle who still haven't figured that one out. And maybe Trump hasn't either. We're just going to have to wait and see.
Today's meetings, meanwhile, again, follow an announcement this morning. Congressman Tom Price tapped to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. And again, we saw the Vice President-elect Mike Pence at Trump Tower yesterday discussing this, among other picks to come. What do you believe his role was in making this decision?
One simple word: crucial. Every personnel decision announced so far by the Trump transition team has the fingerprints of Mike Pence all over them. Those things that he has driven the process behind and been the leading voice on have been resolved. Look at Nikki Haley, UN ambassador. That was not something that was ripe or necessarily teed up for the announcement, but Vice President-elect Mike Pence went down to Florida, saw Nikki Haley, the governor of South Carolina, the Republican Governors Association meeting. They had a quick conversation, and that worked out to a way where he could make the offer, get an acceptance, go back to Trump Tower, and put the deal together. Tom Price is someone that Mike Pence, the Vice President-elect, knows very well, ideologically aligned with. He drove the process on that. Done. So in this respect, look at Mike Pompeo, congressman from Kansas, nominated CIA director. All these things that have moved rapidly and moved somewhat efficiently have Mike Pence's fingerprints on them. And Trump loyalists will tell you, as they've told me, there's a very good reason for that. Trump is genuinely an outsider. He does not know a lot of the people in Washington. He doesn't have either a rapport or a sense of their background. Mike Pence does. And because he does, he has filled a personnel placement vacuum within the Trump transition team. And so oftentimes those appointments, those nominations that get done and get done rapidly and with some degree of efficiency around them are because Pence is driving the process. Those that have become more complicated, more dramatic, more full of intrigue, like Secretary of State, have Trump's fingerprints all over them.
Major, I want to get you out of here on this one. The president-elect's social media activity in the last 24 hours, something of a squall, as you've noted, to be sure. It has included everything from tweets about voter fraud, attacks on CNN, and also flag burning and implied attack on the idea of free speech here. Is it just trolling on the part of Donald Trump, or is there some common thread here?
I can't detect a common thread, and I was just on the phone with someone who is very much involved in this entire process. And that person said to me, come on, Major, by now you have to be familiar with this. There isn't even a yield sign. Forget about a stop sign. There are no signs in front of the president-elect. He picks up the mechanism by which he tweets, whatever it is, and he does it. There's no conversation, there's no filtering, there's no method, meaning there's no method with his other advisors. There's just Trump. And so there isn't a thread. There's just an impulse to talk about something that happens to be on his mind at that moment. It is unlike anything I've ever seen before, and I guess I'm still in a bit of a shock syndrome, thinking there was a campaign orientation to this, but it wouldn't transfer to being president-elect. Well, sure enough, it has. And it goes on.
So you don't believe that it is an effort to distract from discussions of his business dealings abroad,
it might be, but I mean, those discussions are going to continue. The one thing that anyone who has either covered the presidency or been a part of a presidency knows is, A, you don't need to add drama. There's built-in drama every single day, whether you're president-elect or president of the United States. So you don't need to add that. Trump is going to have to learn that lesson. Secondly, there are always distractions. There are 100 storylines every single day about the American presidency. You can neither stop nor redirect all or even half of them. They just exist. And that is certainly going to be true with a Trump presidential election transition and a Trump presidency. He will generate stories constantly. And if there is a strategic impulse to distract, after a while, this Twitter mechanism won't work anymore because people will see it exactly as that. That's another thing that comes with the presidency. People watch you very closely, and they begin to make determinations about what you are communicating and how you're communicating. And then you know what they begin to do? If they think there's a pattern that is meant to do something they're not in favor of or suspicious of, they screen you out. They screen the President of the United States out. They just stop listening to you. So that's another aspect that Trump is going to have to get used to on this. But right now, it all just feels so very improvisational and so random that it strikes me and those closest to Trump as impulse-driven predominantly and very little else.
Memos still to be received, perhaps, by the president-elect, and really a snapshot of the next 40 years of your life. Major Garrett in Washington.
We'll see.
As always, we appreciate the time.
Thanks.